All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to laser number 2 of Arts and Sciences, Telluride 2024. And the overall subject of this 12 laser Zoom series, hosted by Leonardo and with many others partnering and helping, which I'll describe in a little while. I'm Richard Lowenberg, and today our session is on space, signs, and signals, instead of any other title that might have been appropriate. And I want to welcome Agnes Chavez, Dan Goods, Daniela DePaulis, and Marton Orosz. And they will introduce themselves further in greater detail. And I think they will inspire and make you think about things you haven't thought about or seen or heard. Let's see. The overall program here is called The Nature of Information. And it's a subject that's been my core of my creative thinking and doing for a long time. I've always been interested in, for 50 years or more, the merging of our information revolution, the becoming of an information society, these throwaway catchphrases. But something real has been happening for a few generations now, and we are rapidly emerging into other areas of technology development and ways of processing information. And yet, my concern has long been that we're not thinking ecologically, meaning in terms of whole systems understanding, dynamic, complex whole systems. We're not including our information environment in our thinking about ecosystems very much. Very few people are. Presenters today are. And I think it's going to be a global necessity. And I think artists and scientists are well placed sometimes to be presenting on this, as we're doing here over the coming week. So we'll talk more about that over during and over each program. And I'll, toward the end of our session today, give a little background on the upcoming webinars, lasers. But right now, let's get started. And I think I'd like to begin with Agnes, actually. Surprise, Agnes, you're on.
Okay, it's great to be here. Thank you, Richard. It's great to be here with all of these wonderful guests. So my presentation is about 12 minutes, and I'll just go ahead and get started. So my name is Agnes Chavez. I am a new media artist, an educator, and founder of STEMArts Lab. STEMArts is a nonprofit organization based in Taos, New Mexico, and its mission is to empower youth through arts and humanities, science, and technology. So my work has been inspired and informed by the new physics. Pretty much since the 80s, I collaborate with physicists and I participate in residencies at science institutes such as CERN, Fermilab, and basically to keep me up to date on the latest research that is expanding our understanding of the universe. Currently, I'm a guest artist at Fermilab, exploring neutrino astronomy through augmented reality experiences. So we are living in an extraordinary time for scientific and technological advancements that are expanding our understanding of the universe on Earth and in space. But at the same time, we're faced with the challenges of climate change, species extinction, unregulated space exploration, the rise of misinformation, and science denialism. So how can we provide our youth with meaningful ways to access this information and knowledge as informed and creative participants in the new space age? This is the question that we're asking at STEMArts Lab. So STEMArts Lab is a team of artists, scientists, and cultural specialists collaborating with youth to design educational SciArt experiences which tour to art and science festivals around the world. Our goal is to use the power of immersive art to develop their artistic, scientific, and humanistic literacy, and to reimagine our humanity as informed digital content creators and storytellers. Here you can see the STEMArts model that informs our design process. So for this presentation, I'm going to dive into one STEMArts Lab project that is especially focused on space and the process of understanding our place in the universe. We believe that the exploration of space can send new signals of understanding to our youth that expand their identities as planetary citizens and as a way to nurture creative and informed youth leaders in the new space age. So we were invited to present Space Messengers at Ars Electronica in Linz, Austria this year. So in this video, you will see the Portuguese youth ambassadors that traveled with us to the festival to serve as XR guides. So you can hear from them directly describing the project.
Space Messengers is an immersive mixed reality experience that combines international students from different countries.
Where are you from? From Portugal.
This is the fifth city that this project is being presented.
It's more international. It's really popular.
We have workshops with different scientists and philosophers and artists that talk to us about the great questions of humanity.
Some massive event like that could cause space-time itself to ripple.
And it all culminates in this art installation.
And there's 3 activities you can try here.
That one where you can talk to a real particle physicist.
It's carbon and nitrogen in the comet that makes it green.
Just to clarify, he's a real person. He's not AI.
Over here, it's the Space Messengers board.
Well, you've seen these messages popping up. So these are messages either from students, teachers, or visitors.
So if you want to leave your own message, you just have to scan that QR code and the message will travel with us through the festival.
Here we have a movement sensor station, which captures your silhouette and then puts it against a database of videos.
Each of the little dots is a video.
When we look up and point our telescopes into space, the universe is sending us information.
And what you can see in this process?
It's the VR section. There's 4 different worlds to explore, and each one of those worlds represents 1 year of this project.
So I think Space Messengers is such a nice project and works so good. It's all about giving skills to the students, preparing good citizens for the future, for an interplanetary, sustainable, universal future.
A huge part about being a futurist requires us to bring some of those futures to life. And often, as we look back through history, some of the most important ways to do that is all through artistic means of storytelling.
So as you can see, we invite our students to join our team so that they can get their information directly from the artists, the scientists, and the cultural experts, so that they can explore the universe from interdisciplinary perspectives. So I'm now going to present you to Marcus Dorninger. He is one of the Space Messengers artists that is going to explain the interactive silhouettes technology that you saw and that he created.
As you get close to the projection, your body gets visualized as a silhouette. So you see yourself inside this interactive universe, but within your silhouette, you see different particles. And these particles are actually tiny little worlds. And as you step even closer, the installation zooms into one of these little universes, and it reveals a glimpse into the process of the workshop. So you would hear a statement by one of the scientists or experts, or something that was said during the discussion with the students, or even the result of the art making activities that we did during the workshop.
So then we took Space Messengers to Guadalajara. We were invited to bring it to the Noche de las Estrellas event in Guadalajara, Mexico at the Planetario Lunaria as part of our international exchange program that we have. And this was between the New Mexican and Mexican students. So you're going to hear from one of the students that participated in the 7-week Zoom workshop, which culminated in this event.
Oscar Galicia, and I am part of Space Messengers from the city of Guadalajara in Mexico.
Futures thinking tells us that the future is not something that will happen to you tomorrow, but is being created by everyone today.
I find very inspiring because it means that we can make different choices now, and we can make choices that can lead us to a different place and a better future.
All the stars are moving very fast, and if there were no dark matter, they would fly off into space.
El avatar le explicó a mi hermana cómo un asteroide chocó con la Tierra y la Tierra se partió.
It was an amazing experience to speak with experts in native tribes, in physics, and even with a science who works in the Central Collider.
There's this round accelerator called the LHC, the Large Hadron Collider. It's 27 kilometers around. And at 4 places along that accelerator, we bring protons through each other.
Talking about the interstellar future of humans allowed us to fly our imaginations. There are many possibilities in the space.
So what you saw there, those messages that you've been seeing floating up on the wall, we collect them from all the workshops and from live audience as well that send them these space messages. And we're using a custom platform that was created in collaboration with Roy McDonald. Here you see a screenshot from it. So students interact with our team through this platform. And the messages are integrated directly into the installation on the back end, which is what you see projected. And also we can actually change the languages. You might see the languages change on the screen. So the platform lets us to right away translate the messages to the language of the country that's hosting us. So we created a series of virtual reality experiences that were presented at the Paseo Festival in Taos, New Mexico. Here you're going to see the work of VR artists Saran from Tokyo, Izumi Yokoyama from Taos, Eliza McNitt from New York, and Vista, New Mexico.
What do you see out there in the dark? For thousands of years, we've looked to the stars to find our place in the universe. Reach out and feel the universe.
Okay. So this year, as a guest artist at Fermilab, we are developing augmented reality experiences to add to the Space Messenger's traveling installation. So this is one of the first experiments you're going to see here, visualizing wave function collapse and neutrino particle interactions. So on the right, little delay. On the right, you see the augmented visualization that appears when you scan the QR code and then point your phone to the disc that you see at the bottom of that sculpture in the center. And then the sculpture features an original photo multiplier tube that is used in neutrino experiments. And here on the left, I'm going to click on a summer camp kids reacting to the augmented reality experience when it was showing at the Fuller Lodge Art Center just recently in Los Alamos.
Good mind going, and I'm going to show you guys. You guys ready for this? Okay, so you see this piece of art right here, right? And you've all been asking, what is it?
Yeah, look at the layout.
Yeah, everybody needs to back up just a little bit or you won't get right there. So now you can see on my phone.
Whoa.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody can see.
How does she do that?
You know, that is a question I can't answer. How does she do that? Okay, I'm coming around. So I gotta point it back down here.
Oh, how did that happen? What is going on? How did that happen?
Back me out.
I kind of get it.
So if everybody backs up a little bit, we can make it bigger. I want you to touch one of those particles on my phone screen, and you guys, can you see what's happening? You guys, oh, touch it. Look at the balloon. Touch one of the particles. Okay, so it's gonna reset. Yep. Okay, touch a particle right there.
That is like modeling how it interacts. So now do it next one.
Okay, I want you to, when they come back, I want you to touch a particle.
So you can see how much opportunity there is to like say, what is the blue? Cherenkov radiation. So it can be used as a science tool, but it was really great to see their reaction for the first time. So finally, we have here our latest project that we're going to be launching this week. It's the new STEM Arts International Design Challenge with the theme Space for Earth, Space for All in collaboration with the Space Valley Coalition in Albuquerque. This will allow us to bring this space curriculum and this mission to hundreds of students. It's open to students ages 14 to 20 in northern New Mexico classrooms and with our partner international schools as well. So always returning to the important question that we asked at the beginning and that we're asking as artists, as humanitarians, as scientists, how can we provide our youth with meaningful ways to access and process information and knowledge as informed and creative participants to reimagine humanity in the new space age? So thank you for listening. And on the left, you'll see this is my WhatsApp app. Contact me if you want to contact me directly. And on the right is a link to the essay that I wrote for the NEA, Tech as Art report, if you want to know more about the STEM arts methodology. Thanks again for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you, Agnes. That was just beautiful, just beautiful. Thank you. And we'll talk more about all this after other presentations. I hope we have plenty of time for some interactive discussion because it'll be really a lovely discussion, I'm sure. So, given your presentation, I think I'd like to move to invite Daniela to present next. She's a space messenger in her own right.
Thank you, Richard, and hi again, everyone. There you go. Here is my talk. I kept it a bit flexible, not knowing exactly how much time we will have, so apologies if I will skip through some of the slides. This talk can last from 15 minutes to 1 hour. So I thought that for today I would introduce my practice as a cosmic theater. This is a definition that I've been given to my work of the past 15 years more recently. So I've been thinking over the last year about my entire work with interstellar transmissions as a form of cosmic theater in which I try to unite people on Earth with technologies in outer space, including satellites and also celestial bodies. And with my latest project called the Sign in Space, I also extended this cosmic theater into the Martian orbit. So the project is quite global. So the project is a global collaboration with the Green Bank Observatory, the Italian Institute for Radio Astronomy, the SETI Institute. I'm currently artist in residence at the SETI Institute, the European Space Agency, and a panel of specialists from around the world. And pretty much this is my network that I grew over the past 15 years, my professional network that eventually I managed to bring together in this project. So I will just show a video which I think summarizes the project in just a few minutes.
On 24 May 2023, a radio signal containing a simulated extraterrestrial message was transmitted towards Earth by the Trace Gas Orbiter, a Mars-orbiting spacecraft of the European Space Agency. The signal was received by the Green Bank Telescope and the Allen Telescope Array in the United States, and by the Medicina Radio Antenna in Italy. The event was part of the interdisciplinary project A Sign in Space and was streamed live by the SETI Institute, with thousands of people watching in real time. The project has been conceived and directed by media artist Daniela DePaulis, currently artist in residence at the Green Bank Telescope and at the SETI Institute. After the live event, the raw data of the signal were published in the public domain. Shortly after, an international group of citizen scientists gathered on the online platform Discord to work on the decoding process, and in just 1 week, they managed to extract a message from the raw data of the signal. This was an extraordinary achievement by the citizen scientist community who accomplished this feat by collaborating with each other. The data of the message extracted from the radio signal were visualized by the Discord community as an image composed by a black background and white dots. This image, named Star Map, has been the object of hundreds of interpretations by many people who are trying to further decode the data and give them scientific and cultural meanings. The message, however, remains undecoded, and the decoding process is ongoing. A Sign in Space has been reaching the international public. The project, designed as a work of cosmic theater, has created an imaginary event to be experienced subjectively and collectively by people from various cultures and geographical locations. In A Sign in Space, people active in the decoding process are members of a micro-society, engaged in the process of meaning-making. A Sign in Space stages a concrete first contact scenario, simulating the societal, scientific and cultural impact of the first detection of a radio signal from an extraterrestrial civilization. A Sign in Space presents a socially innovative event in which the general public plays a crucial role in decoding a potential extraterrestrial message, employing collective intelligence and skills. In the project, citizen scientists venture into a journey of scientific, cultural, artistic exploration, working independently and in groups. A Sign in Space asks how humans, as a multitude of societies, with very diverse cultural backgrounds give meaning to concepts, events, phenomena, using one of the possibly most radical scenarios that humankind might encounter, attempting to assign meaning to a message from an extraterrestrial civilization. How can we possibly give meaning to something so detached from our terrestrial experience? Hey, I will continue talking a bit about the background of the project. The title, first of all, is borrowed from a short novel by Italo Calvino, published in the collection The Cosmic Comics in 1965. And the short novel is about the very first being to populate the galaxy, so the very first form of life to live in the universe. And tired of its loneliness, the being decides to draw the very first sign to indicate their presence in space. And after many million of years and several rotation of the galaxies, eventually this fictional enigmatic being discovers other signs that other people or life forms have been, in fact, drawing signs in the cosmos. So it is possible that Calvino, who was usually inspired by novelties in science, in scientific research, might have based this particular short novel on the newly founded science of SETI, which in fact began around those years. Typically in popular media, like famous movies like Contact or Arrival, and also in the three-body problem, we see a scenario, a first contact scenario, which is the scenario in which humankind might encounter another civilization, such as a first radio signal from space. Typically, it's a scenario in which one scientist or two scientists, so a very small team of privileged people, have the opportunity to get their hands on the data and eventually extract the message contained within the data. However, I was really compelled by a possibility of testing this process of meaning making, so unraveling, showing the process of meaning making by using a simulated extraterrestrial message for which I would invite people from all over the world, so from different cultural backgrounds, to try and give a meaning to this message. And in fact, this scenario really resonates with an answer given as part of an interview for Forbes in 2019 by linguist Sherry Wells Jensen, who is also a collaborator in the project. And to the question, how could we decode a message from extraterrestrials, Dr. Jensen answers, give it to every adult and every child on the planet who wants it. Toss it to the dolphins and whales. Show it to other primates. And we need to encourage people to express that data in all kinds of ways, in strings of ones and zeros, in grids, using different pitches of sound, with colored lights, played backward, interpreted as instructions for origami, expressed in beadwork or knotted threads, or in mosaics made of M and M's. And we should do this because we can have no idea how it was meant to be interpreted. The very worst thing we can do is leave it to professionals to fuss over. It will be a glorious all hands on deck cacophony of thought and conjecture. And this is almost a premonition of what really happened during the decoding process of the message that we designed for assigning space. In fact, we had all kinds of interpretations, which I will describe in a minute. So this project took 5 years about to implement, and started with phase 1, during which I collaborated with a satellite company called Orbit, and they agreed to run a test on 30 July 2021,
transmitting the Arecibo message from one of their satellites orbiting at 500-kilometer altitudes. So I use this message because, of course, it is an iconic interstellar message that Frank Drake transmitted into space in 1974 using the Arecibo radio telescope. And my provocative question was, would we be able to understand this message if we were to receive it with our own instruments, our own radio telescopes? Would we be able to decode it and interpret it correctly? So the reception worked well. I used 2 radio telescopes, one in Sardinia and also the Medicina radio antenna, both in Italy. And the signal was received very well. So these are the results at both observatories. And this really encouraged me and my team to continue working on the project. So we were able at that point to expand the collaboration to more partners, including the European Space Agency. Also at that point, I had a scholarship at the Green Bank Observatory. And also I became artist in residence at the SETI Institute. So I managed to expand this team into a global collaboration. So we carried a few tests from March to May 2023 in leading eventually to the live event. So here are some examples of the tests. Here you see the white, the yellow lines are the test signal received from the trace gas orbiter during one of our tests. And also another test that worked well, in which the signal was received perfectly. And as part of one of these tests, the European Space Agency also beamed the image of the trace gas orbiter team back to Earth. So the tests went really well. We were ready for the live event, and eventually on 24 May 2023, we were able to present Sign in Space as part of a live performance streamed by the SETI Institute. And as part of the live event, we featured some of the collaborators of the project, and also we transmitted the message from the trace gas orbiter and received it on Earth in real time. So this was a really challenging yet it worked really smoothly thanks to the to the work that we conducted for over 2 years, the preparatory work. And the signal was received by several antennas. So they collaborate in radio telescopes, which I already mentioned, the Medicina radio antenna, Green Bank telescope, Allen telescope array, and also serendipitously we had few more radio telescopes participating, the Raeges station in the Azores, the Arias antenna in Spain, and also the Bochum Radio Observatory in Germany. This is the ideal SETI scenario, the ideal first contact scenario, meaning that more than one radio telescope receives the signal. This would allow scientists to definitely confirm if the signal is from an extraterrestrial civilization, as opposed to, for example, a signal from a natural source. So this scenario was also well received by the media. It was the very first time in the history of SETI that this kind of simulation was conducted with real scientists, with real scientific instruments, and also involving the global public. So we received a lot of media attention from major media outlets, including Scientific American, Wired, CNN, New York Times, and several others. So just during the first week, we were able to reach more than 145 million people. And the website has been visited from 176 countries. The reason why these numbers are important to me is because my intention with this project was, as I said at the beginning, to create this global stage. So I wanted to create this imaginary event that could live in the mind of people, regardless of their location on Earth. So I wanted to create a performance, a theatrical story that would go beyond the limits of the stage, of the space of the stage, of the traditional stage. So besides on Discord, as I mentioned earlier, there is a community that gathered to decode the message, the process, decoding process has been ongoing for over a year. After 1 week, they managed to extract the message from the raw data and visualize it as part of this image. And there has been thousands of interpretations at this point, from considering these white dots on a black background as star maps, and also origamis, and also someone imagined this could be a braille map. And also the braille map was part of a recent exhibition in Italy, of a touring exhibition of the project. Someone also made a weaved work out of the star map. Someone imagined it could be a puzzle, and some citizen scientists started to really take this message into three-dimensional forms. Someone imagined it could be a Morse code signal. Someone thought it could be how extraterrestrials sees us from outer space through our light pollution problem. It could be maybe a song of a dying planet from a faraway galaxy. So there were a lot of really very creative interpretations. And eventually, just over a month ago, on 7 June 2024, 2 citizens from the US, Ken and Kelly Chaffin, submitted the correct interpretation of the decoded version of this message. So they managed to decode this message through a mathematical system called cellular automata, and they revealed this map of 5 amino acids. And now the community on Discord is trying to understand what the meaning of these amino acids could be. So they're continuing the questions, and they are peeling other layers of the message, so other possible interpretations. And they're now exploring the possibility of coming to a conclusive understanding of this simulated message. Some citizen scientists have been also analyzing the decoding process, the meaning-making process, by, for example, looking at the words that have been used the most in the interpretations chat on Discord. And overall, now there are more than 60,000 posts on Discord revealing the process of meaning-making around this message. So I will just also show quickly other features that we developed to involve the general public, including a website which has a really user-friendly feature that allows people to make drawings and to send their visual responses to the interpretation process, but also in general to the message and to the possible discovery of extraterrestrial intelligence. And we have been trying to organize these drawings. I received approximately 1,000 of them from many countries around the world. And it has been very challenging to organize them. However, we are now making groups that, for example, put them together under the label of written messages or signatures, or formulas and graphs, sometimes completely imaginary formulas, and maps, or, for example, pop culture references. We received quite a few of those. But in general, there has been a huge display of human creativity, human engagement with the project, and overall with the idea of receiving a message from an extraterrestrial intelligence. I think if we ever experience this event, the general public will have an incredible response to it. So it will be really leading a cognitive revolution, in my opinion. So these are some of the drawings we received. And I just want to read quickly one of the messages, one of the many messages actually that people have been submitting through the project website that show how people from all over the world, so not only academics and scientists from the SETI Institute, for example, are thinking about the question, are we alone? Many people from all over the world are thinking about the same question and really speculating about how we might be experiencing an event of first contact. And this message says, who am I? What am I doing? I know nothing. I feel like working in the human intestine like a bacterium, and I know nothing about the existence of the human being. There is a chance that we are also bacteria and don't know anything about the deep knowledge of the universe. I hope any alien will listen to me and understand my language, because I'm speaking in a mixture of Urdu, Hindi, and English. What else can I say? I think I'm the weakest human who knows nothing. I know that I don't know anything, and I'm sad about it. And I'm sad because I'm fond of learning. I will never be able to understand the ultimate truth. I can only feel things based on perception, but will never reach the truth. And I thought this really could be how we might be feeling as humankind in general when we will discover another life form or another civilization from extraterrestrial origin. We might really be feeling like bacteria working in the cosmic intestine. So we might not really be able to go beyond the cognitive limits and our knowledge and our own language limitations. Besides the Discord platform and the website, there has been also an ongoing program of workshops hosted by the SETI Institute with SETI perspectives from around the world, including Aboriginal Australians, and also Islamic research community. And these workshops have been followed by people from all over the world. And one of the most recent workshops was in collaboration with Dr. Jensen, who imagined how the visually impaired and the blind community could provide some really useful insights for a possible first contact scenario. We also published a paper a few months ago on Acta Astronautica, which has also been reaching the space engineering field. So the project has really been reaching not only people in the arts, but also people from the space sciences itself. And we were shortlisted for the Lovis Award. And also last year, I won the Europlanet Prize for Public Engagement, thanks to A Sign in Space. I also want to mention just very briefly the best acknowledgement to this project for me has been really coming from the Discord community. And they decided to nominate an asteroid with my name. So eventually last year, the International Astronomical Union approved of this kind request of the Discord community. And I'm extremely grateful and humbled about that. So here is the website in case you want to learn more about the work that people have been doing around this message. I think ultimately this is the achievement of the project. For me, it has been mostly a journey in which I brought together people I've met over the years at conferences. I had the pleasure to work with, and it has been really a privilege to be able to work with talented scientists from these world-renowned institutions. But I think the greatest contribution to the project has really been the general public, who has been providing an incredible, insightful, and creative response to this message that we designed for the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniela. That was just mind expanding. And so I think we'll just keep moving through, and I think this dovetails beautifully with a presentation by Dan Goods next.
Me and myself. There we go. Howdy. Let's see. Let me put this on there. That was beautiful, and we share. I'm gonna talk about someone that you talked about as well a little bit later on, Dr. Sherry Wells. So, hi. So my name is Dan Goods, and I went to an art school to study graphic design a long time ago, and I always loved, the aesthetic of graphic design, but there were a bunch of advertising students that were at the school as well, and they didn't have aesthetics, but they had ideas. And so I love those types of things. And then there were people that were environmental designers, and they weren't architects. They weren't, it wasn't like they were, but they could create a space that made you feel. And so I love those three different things, something that's spatial, something that's that makes you feel, that has a big idea, that is beautiful. And I don't always get to use all three of those different things, but I was trying to figure out, well, how do I do something like that? And I ended up getting to do an internship at Caltech. So I went to Art Center College of Design. It's in Pasadena, and they were opening up opportunities for Art Center students to do internships there. And I was working with a fine artist. His name is David Kremers, and he had me do a funny thing. So they were working on mapping the developing mouse. So they had this crazy machine that could basically scan when a baby mouse is just being birthed, and all the way through or actually before it's birthed, so while it's gestating, and all the way until it was birthed. And they had all this data that they were trying to map on top of it. And he had me study transparency and iridescence as ways of showing lots of information. And the research that I was supposed to do was to swim like an otter for half an hour a day in the swimming pool. And I'm not much of a swimmer, which was actually sort of the point, because being underneath of the water was kind of new to me, and everything was different. And so I spent a lot of time doing somersaults and playing around like an otter, but looking at ways in which transparency and iridescence showed information to see how we could map that onto this atlas of a mouse. And this was before Google Maps or anything like that. That was my first opportunity to be around an artist that was working with scientists, and this was a lot of fun. I was like, wow, this is amazing. How can I do more of this? I ended up getting to meet the director of the Jet Propulsion Lab. So this is one of NASA's many different centers. It's in Pasadena, California, and it's really known for robotic exploration of the solar system. And so this is the Perseverance rover that landed on Mars a few years ago. Right now it's scooping up dirt and sticking it in little containers. Hopefully we're going to go there and pick them up. But we also do lots of other things. We have telescopes that are in space that looks at stars and galaxies and planets around other stars. And a third of our budget is actually to help us understand the Earth. And so there's a bunch of satellites that help us understand our atmosphere, oceans, earthquakes, global warming aspects of things. And but a lot of people don't really know that we do that aspect of things. So there's a lot of data and a lot of information at the Jet Propulsion Lab. And I remember one of the coolest formative moments of my life is there's something called the Deep Space Network. And so there's 3 locations. One's on the way to Vegas, one's in Spain, and one is in Australia. And there's a bunch of different radio antennas there. And they're equidistant around the Earth, so that as the Earth is spinning, you're always able to communicate to a satellite that's out in space. But it's, this particular one's out in the desert, and it's kind of bizarre out there. It's very quiet, and you have these huge antennas. Some of them are 70 meters, others are about 35 meters. The little thing we're looking in on the right there is the little cone that you would see inside of one of those antennas. But I remember being out there with my friend David Delgado, and it was super quiet, and we were we're kind of wondering, like, wow, it's like all this data is raining down on us, but you can't see it. And another thing was like, well, since we can't see the spacecraft or we can't see the data, and you can't really even see these things moving, it takes a while for these things. They move really slow if the antennas are gonna point in a different direction. I started to wonder, when I could hear like birds flying and other animals out in the desert, and I started to wonder, what if I could listen to the location of satellites? And both of these sort of ideas of like data raining down on us and listening to the location of satellites, it took a long time. It took about 10 years before we actually got to do anything with those, but they sort of led to these projects. So this is mission control at the Jet Propulsion Lab. So all the data from all the spacecraft that use the Deep Space Network, which is anything that's at the moon or beyond, goes through this one room at JPL. And I get a live feed from that room, and we made the sculpture so that when that it reacts to this spacecraft communication. So when lights come down, that means at that second, we're receiving data from a spacecraft. And when lights are going up, we're sending data to a spacecraft. And the more light that you see represents more data, less light represents less data. So we still get data from Voyager. We almost lost it a few weeks ago, but when we do get data, it's not very much. So it sort of looks like, it's broken sometimes, but plenty of other spacecraft send and receive lots of data, and then you'll see lots of light coming down. And so kind of think of this as the heartbeat of space exploration, this feed of data that's going back and forth. And so this is called the Pulse. And if for those that are interested, originally it was all made in processing, and I didn't do any of the programming. I'm not a programmer, more of a creative director. And a great person ended up programming all this. And what was great is that when we were trying to figure out like the physicality of this, we're like, well, how many circles of LEDs should we have, and how far apart should they be? And he made this really amazing, his name was Andrea Nagata, and he made all these little sliders that you could change the size and the width and how many, and then eventually we use the same software to actually run the sculpture itself. Since then, we've made smaller ones. There's going to be another large one at the Kennedy Space Center. And if you go to NASA headquarters, we did a different version. So this is all spacecraft that are at the moon or beyond. And there's probably about 40 of them. And they're not just NASA satellites, they're ESA and the European Space Agency and the Japanese Space Agency. And there's a whole bunch of other people that have spacecraft that are at the moon or beyond. But this one is specific to Earth science. So any spacecraft that NASA has that studies the Earth, I get a live feed from that. And the same sort of thing as lights come down, we're downlinking data, and then lights going up, we're uplinking. This spot had a really great high ceiling, so we could sort of change the shape and the animations. And this you can just walk into if you ever go to Washington, D.C. NASA headquarters is near the mall, near the National Mall, just a little bit south of it by a couple of blocks. So you can walk in and see that, as well as what's called the Earth Information Center, where there's basically showcasing all the newest up to the minute data that NASA's receiving about the Earth. So I mentioned two projects sort of came from that one trip. And someone was asking us if we could somehow go to, there was a big festival in New York, and they were like, nobody knows that NASA studies the Earth. So can we do something to help educate people about that? And my friend, David Delgado, he said, well, remember that sound thing? What if we did something like that? And so again, there's about 20 spacecraft that are orbiting the Earth, and we thought, well, what if we had this array of speakers, and sort of like surround sound on steroids, and much like, you know, remembering listening to a bird flying across the sky, you know, what if we could listen to one of the satellites that NASA has that's passing us? And so we ended up working with an amazing architect, Jason Klomoski, and he came up with this idea of a seashell. And because seashell, you listen to a seashell, you hear the ocean. Our seashell, you're going to be listening to the location of satellites. And Shane Mirbeck is an amazing composer and audio engineer, and he helped wire up compose sounds for each of the different satellites. And this is a little bit of what it sounds like. So from a distance, you see this bizarre object, and you hear something, you're not really quite sure what it is, but when you get up close, when you get inside, when you stand in the center, wherever you hear a sound, if you were to point to that, that's the exact location of one of the NASA satellites flying around the Earth. So there's one satellite that's going around the Earth that has humans on it, and that's the only one that sounds like voices, and that's the International Space Station. And it was, you know, I'm not always sure if these things are actually working, right? You know, like, and I remember going there one evening, and it was dusk, and I could actually see the International Space Station going by, and I heard the voices, and I was like, oh, that's so amazing. It's I'm so glad that it's actually working, and we're not lying to everybody. Here's a little group shot of Jason Klomoski on the left, myself next to him, Shane Mirbeck, and David Delgado on the right. So there's a spacecraft at Jupiter, and it's called Juno, and it's doing a bunch of amazing things. Many of the images that come back are just spectacular. But what's I find the most interesting and compelling is not necessarily the planet Jupiter, but the moons. And one of its moons is called Europa. And Europa is special because we call it an ocean world. And so it's this ice shell, and underneath, we believe, is a gigantic ocean. And all combined, we believe there's twice as much water there on Europa than there is on Earth. And this is about the size of our moon, so it's about half the size of the Earth. And you know, we see all these streaks and potential spots where there's cracks, where maybe the water is kind of coming up. And my dream is that before I die, that we somehow get a submarine that goes down into those oceans and see what's swimming around. But one of the things about being at JPL, I've been there for about 21 years now, is that people get to know you, and they over time they ask you interesting questions, and so some of the engineers were working on this vault. It's like a big cube, hollow cube, and it's made of material that can keep out a lot of radiation, because it's really radiation is really bad next to Jupiter, and this cube sort of holds on to all the electronics and protects them. And they have one spot that there's a hole that was the last thing that they're going to do it's the last thing that they put on before it's a little plate the last thing they put on before they close up the whole spacecraft. And so they were like, hey, what would you guys do with this plate? And so we're like, wow, what would we do with this thing? And actually, we ended up working with Sherry Wells and a few other linguists. And we had this idea of, well, what if we celebrate water in some way? And we're trying to think about different ways of celebrating water. And we're talking to the linguists, and it's like, how do we celebrate all the different ways in which we say water? And so they made a list of over 100 different languages. And then they got people who are was it natural speakers, original speaker, first language of all those different languages to say the word water. We recorded it, and then we took the recording and made a waveform of all those different ways of saying water. And then a beautiful designer, Debbie Millman, helped us put this together. And so these are over 100 different ways of saying the word water. And what's fascinating to see is that you can see how, some have a single syllable, some have multiple syllables, and if you go to the Europa Clipper website, you can even go there and listen to all the different ways in which you can hear it. And so thought it was just a beautiful gesture. It turned out aesthetically really, really beautiful. And then we got to see it actually getting put on the spacecraft. So there's the hole at the very end. And they put it on there, and now it's on this amazing spacecraft called the Europa Clipper. And Europa Clipper is it's not gonna land on Europa, but it's gonna orbit a whole bunch of times, and it's gonna help us understand the thickness and potential areas in which we might imagine someday trying to go down into the ocean. And sometime in the next few months, it's going to launch and get there in about 6 years. So that's the end of my little talk.
Thank you, Dan. And let's see, how many languages can I say thank you in?
Yeah.
We'll just keep moving along here. We've still got a lot to cover. So, Marton, you're up next. I don't think you're going to talk about space communications or such. I actually have no idea what Marton is going to share with us today, although I will just mention that Marton is the creator of a remarkable film, a media work that a feature documentary on György Chavez, the founder of the Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT, among many other involvements. And we're going to be presenting that. We're going to have a screening of that film in Telluride, not online, but just for the Telluride community on Thursday, August 1st. So people here are looking forward to that, and we're trying to get a nice audience to show up in a tiny little town. And I'll introduce Marton Orosz, please.
Hello. So I think I did already share my screen, right? Can you see it?
Yes, looks good.
Great. So actually, I'm working here in Budapest, in Hungary. I'm the director of a very tiny, modest art museum, the Viktor Vasarely Museum. I'm not sure if you know this artist who was active in the 60s and the 70s. He was the father of optical art, and he was born here in Hungary. But he was mainly active in Paris, in France, and actually, as Richard just announced it, I was in the last like 10 or 15 years conducted a very comprehensive research on this person here, György Chavez, who was the founder of the Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT, which was kind of a predecessor of the Media Lab, as well as Nicolas Negroponte also studied with Chavez. And actually, because Chavez was such a complex figure, and he was actually a pioneer, probably the first artist who kind of believed in the intersection of art, science, and technology. And his center at MIT, that was inaugurated in 1967, was really based on this idea how we can integrate art, science, and technology. And he established a fellowship program in that way. However, because we are with a cohort of scientists and artists who are pretty much affiliated with the space exploration, I just wanted to mention that for the 50th anniversary of the first manned mission moon landing in 2019, I created here the Vasarely Museum an exhibition titled the Moon Museum, and actually that exhibition had also some connection with Chavez because the first show ever which displayed this huge pioneering achievement of the Apollo 11 program was at the art gallery, the Hayden Gallery at MIT, just a few weeks after the first three astronauts came back to Earth. And that was the exhibition called the Moon Show, which really had a very very small documentation. So I was able to dig out a lot of photographs, archival photographs. So that's but first I just wanted to show you the tiniest artwork that we displayed on this exhibition, the Moon Museum itself, which was actually transported to the moon in 1969 for the second manned lunar program, the Apollo 12. Brought this artwork to the moon. However, this is a multiple, so it exists in multiple copies. Actually, the smallest artwork that was ever inventorized in the collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York was this artwork. And I was working for 6 years to get the first copy, the prototype of this artwork. We didn't have that much money to bring this work back from the moon itself, but we were able to borrow the prototype of the Moon Museum from Frosty Myers' collection from Florida. Frosty Myers, the sculptor, was the inventor of the Moon Arc project. Right, and so I was able to get some archival photographs from Gus Chavez, who was actually the assistant to Minor White at MIT. Minor White led the photography program at MIT in the 60s. And Gus Chavez, who later became a very important gallerist in Boston, he took a bunch of pictures documenting this very pioneering exhibition, the first exhibition after the Apollo program managed to come back to Earth. And actually, they also brought some moon dust that was also exhibited the first time at MIT. And as the story goes, the curator of the exhibition, Wayne Anderson, who was the curator and the director of the Hayden Gallery at MIT, was the first person who was able to touch the moon dust. So it is really a fascinating story, that when they installed an exhibition and they put the moon dust from one jar to another container, the dust actually came off from one of these containers, and they asked the curator to put it in the showcase display, and he managed to do that. However, some particles, some dust from the jar, just attached to the fingernail of the curator of the exhibition. So that's why Wayne Anderson told it later that he was the first person, because not even the astronauts or the scientists were able to touch the moon dust only with gloves, but without bare hands. So that was an art historian, the curator of the first moon exhibition, that physically touched the surface of the moon. So we also exhibited the Moon Arc, which was a project of the Carnegie Mellon University. That was the last work that another MIT CIVS fellow, Laurie Burgess, developed. And we were the last art museum which was able to actually showcase this artwork before Laurie Burgess passed away. He passed away during the exhibition in 2019. So this integrated sculpture that was really pretty much connects to what Dan was talking about, about how we could integrate in one sculpture, all the knowledge of the humanity, that artists, designers, educators, scientists, and engineers could miniaturize and put it in to this tiny sculpture that could act as a bottle and ship it to the cosmic space. So according to my knowledge, this moon arc will be transported to the moon for the next manned moon mission by NASA, hopefully next year or in 2 years. And we were able to exhibit the prototype of this, and also the sketches or the drawings or the preliminary drawings that Laurie did. And by the way, Victor Vasarely, who our museum was named after, he was the one who, with the first French astronaut, I think his name was Jean-Luc Chrétien, was able to transport hundred of his serigraphies, his silkscreen prints, to the Russian space. I mean the International Space. How do you call that?
International Space Station.
That's the space station. Yes, that was a French and a Soviet mission in 1982, and after the artworks were returned from the space station, the serigraphies, the silkscreen prints were auctioned by UNESCO to help the young scientists from the third world. Probably you know this cover that was also based on Vasarely's design of the so-called CTA series. So CTA was a signal that were received simultaneously by the Soviet and the American space agencies, and they believed that were like the signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. And Vasarely designed a whole series, based on the CTA idea. And this is one of the CTA compositions that David Bowie, who was also a Vasarely fan, actually utilized for the cover of the Space Oddity album. That also came out in 1969. So, but in Kepes's legacy, space had also a a very symbolic meaning, because during his MIT years in 1951, he was the one who curated the new landscape exhibition, which was a pioneering show that combined the microscopic and the macroscopic universe, and juxtaposed these documents and photographs with actual artworks borrowed from art museums. During my research, I also came across with some of the notes Chavez did during end of the 1930s, when he was the professor of the first light art workshop in Chicago at the New Bauhaus. And based on his notes, actually the space and architecture and the urban space as like an idea where this creative agency could be brought into was very much impressed him. And I think based on these drawings, he was one of the first who came up with the idea of projection mapping already in the end of the 1930s. And in the 1940s, together with his students, he did this fascinating 60mm movie, which documented how the light machine, which was a device that projected like abstract light show, and was also utilized for camouflage research during the Second World War in Chicago. And that was also a prototype of this, and that was documented in this documentary film. And of course, you know, the perceptual form of the city, which later became an independent volume by Chavez's fellow professor at MIT School of Architecture and Planning, Kevin Lynch, that really was focusing on the problem how urban space could be explored with like visual symbols, and the whole new typology, new language of beacons, how could be spotted and integrated to the city exploration. So sign, that was the second catchwork of this, the title of this laser talk, was very evident in Chavez's writings, theoretical writings. He dedicated a whole volume entitled Sign, Image, Symbol, that came out and published in 1965 and 1966 of the Vision Value series. And you can see the name of the contributors. That was like 50% of them were scientists, the other 50% artists. So Chavez basically tried to channel in like an encyclopedic knowledge on some of these fields that he believed that connected to topics of the mid-century, like media art that was developing during that time. And I think it's very interesting how he integrated visually these kind of diametrical opposite subject of art and science. For example, here of the cover of his new landscape book, the punch card like design, which was certainly associated with science, was combined with the image of a flower, of an X-ray image of the flower, which Chavez believed a visual symbol of an art. And the same pattern was also later on was utilized in some of his installations, cybernetically programmed installations during the 1970s. For example, these Polaroid screens that he was used in this installation of the photoelastic walk, how this the people who were walking on the surface of these screens stretched certain color patterns, and that's how their walk became like illuminated with this kind of very interesting rainbow-like kaleidoscope like patterns that this like walkway created. And also his research was pretty much was visible in most of his media works, early media works. Here I'm just showing you one example of that that he came across by reading Francois Bois', the anthropologist, book on Peruvian textiles, and how the pre-Inca civilization's technique of creating these rugs was utilized in this, for example, in this programmed kinetic cybernetic light work that Chavez designed for the KLM, the Dutch Airlines ticket office in New York in 1959. So the same system that was used in the pre-Inca civilization was the logic of how he used the patterns that created these sequences, these light sequences, which reflected on the city observed from above the sky, the nightscape of the city, how people was able to catch the glimpse of it from an airplane. I'm just showing you some slides from the same work that Chavez did. So, and signals was also something that often reoccurred in Chavez's artistic legacy. One of the most symbolic was this painting that he did in the mid of the 1970s, titled "To Whom It May Concern." That was utilized for a laser projection in 1977 at the Kassel documentary in Germany, the world's largest contemporary art venue. That was also an installation that was produced by fellows and artists working for Chavez's Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT. And this center beam exhibition was also took place a year later. So that was the original one in 1977, and 1 year later they reinstalled it at a national mall in Washington, D.C. And so this laser projection that was created based on Chavez's painting, at least the title of it, was kind of reflecting on one of the sayings of the mathematician Norbert Wiener, who was, as you know, the father of cybernetic art, and he was a colleague of Chavez at MIT, and he even contributed to some of Chavez's books, including The New Landscape in Art and Science. And through Norbert Wiener, Chavez also participated at the Macy conference, at least one session of it at MIT in the end of the 40s. I just wanted to talk very briefly about how Chavez's legacy was, or at least what we are trying to do, how we can integrate it to today's knowledge, and how we can benefit from it, especially what his contribution in the field of light art, because actually he already started to write a book dedicated on the creative use of light, and not just light as an art instrument or like a medium for art, but he also wanted to focus on like light as an encyclopedic knowledge, light what meant in the culture of humanity, the science of light, and all kinds of aspect of light design. So this book that he started to write in the 1930s up until his retirement in the 1970s was not finished, but it's available in a manuscript form. So that will be one of my next project to edit it, and maybe to just extend it with one final chapter focusing on the contemporary light art endeavors. So there's an international Chavez society that was founded in the early 90s, in 1993. That was the first light art symposium in Eger in Hungary, not far from the city or the village where Chavez was born. So this was just an image of very first display of the museum dedicated to Chavez that was inaugurated in the 1990s. So it's not there anymore, because the museum was moved to a different location. But I just wanted to show you some archival images. So last September, we convened light art symposium dedicated to the 30th anniversary of the first light art symposium. That took place at the Moholy-Nagy University here in Budapest, the Moholy University of Art and Design. So we had a lot of international guests, including Jeffrey Shaw, one of the most known new media artists. He based in Hong Kong. I think he moved now from the City University to the Baptist University of Hong Kong. We had Karis Terranova from University of Dallas, who is also a Chavez expert. We had the pleasure to invite the founder of the Signal Light Art Festival, which is one of the largest light art festival in Europe, based in Prague, Martin Posta. We had also Robert Orwitz from Prague. Maybe you know Robert, who was the editor of the Whole Earth magazine, 1970s, 80s, and he was also contributor of several art journals in the US. And we had Michael Niemark, who was also Chavez's fellow at the Center for Advanced Visual Studies. And he, as you know, he did the Aspen Movie Map, which was the predecessor of the Google Earth, actually Google Street Map, sorry. That was also an MIT project, and he also took part of the development of the first laser disc that was created at the Media Lab at MIT in the 80s. And this symposium that we did was actually run parallel with an exhibition that I curated at the Vasarely Museum, titled Luminotech, that showcased some light-based artworks of the members of the International Chavez Society. We try to focus on every aspects of light art design. You can see here on the left a fiber optics sculpture by a Milan-based Italian artist. Also like some holograms. I think the one here in the middle is by Michael Lowenberg. We had also one from Dieter Jung. This is an imaginary camera, a not existing, a reinvented camera by Tamás Walitsky, who also based in Hong Kong and teaching at the City University. And this is the one from Dieter Jung, a German, Berlin-based hologram artist who was also a fellow at the CIVS at MIT. And we also redid, based on a sketch of Vera Molnar. Vera Molnar just passed away last year, and she was one of the first woman computer artist. And we created a light artwork based on one of her sketches by using illuminated paint, and we just like a neon green paint that was illuminated in the dark at the exhibition. This is the process how this sketch was blow up on to put it on a wall, and it was in fact the last artwork that was ever exhibited at the art museum during Vera Molnar's life, because she died in the age of 90 last November, so just 1 month after we opened this exhibition. And we also had some very young member of the International Chavez Society. For this work is by a UK-based artist, Balin Boigo. And I think I don't have any other slides to share. So this was just kind of some flimsy ideas, that I did jot down and related to space research, how Chavez, who I use always as a case study for my work, for my research, because he had such a complex legacy, and he's connected to all kind of aspects related to media art and this kind of and system approach as well, and cybernetic culture, you name it. And he was a forgotten figure, that we really have to put back into place. And I'm very hopeful that my film that will be screened as Richard just announced on the 1st August. This is a feature-length documentary film, I think 97 minutes long. That will be screened tomorrow in Taipei, in Taiwan, because Chavez also had a major impact actually on the modernism of the Southeast Asia. But that will be a subject for another talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marton. Well, as is the case when we have really remarkable presentations, we have no time for discussion among ourselves, unfortunately. So we have about 4 minutes. We have another session after this. We're giving about a 20-minute break between the end of this and the beginning of the next laser. So I don't want to go on too long. I want to thank everybody. I could mention a lot of resonance with some of the things Marton mentioned. I studied architecture with Sybil Moholy-Nagy, and I was involved with NASA and the arts in the 1970s primarily, being one of the first artists to use satellite telecommunications in 1977, taking performers through gravitational simulation training with NASA Ames, NASA Johnson Space Center, Marshall Space Center. And to make that project happen, I had to go to NASA headquarters and met a man named Dr. Jesko von Puttkammer, who was in charge of special projects for NASA. And he sort of opened many doors at other NASA facilities for me to work with. And it turned out, I learned later, he also was the advisor to Gene Roddenberry on the creation of Star Trek. So there's a lot of art and science and popular culture that comes through. I'd like to mention that we have a session starting in about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and that's going to feature Ken Rinaldo, Andrea Polli, Ricardo D'Alfara, and Sean Brixey. And I think it's going to be, as we have begun here today, it's going to be a really inspiring session. So I urge anybody who's watching this to stay and come back and tune in to Artful Intelligence, the more appropriate way to talk about AI. Also, just relative to this presentation, I don't know if Dan is going to make it to SIGGRAPH this coming week, but one of the people that was on a session originally scheduled with Dan is Eleni. What is Eleni's full name? Eleni Nicole, well, Helen Nicole Costas. And she is working at this Earth Imaging Lab that Dan mentioned. And she will talk from SIGGRAPH next on Wednesday, the 31st. About the Earth Imaging Lab and some new initiatives to share a tremendous amount of data and imagery and other things with projects that others might utilize that information for climate change, for educational purposes, for arts, etc. So that's Wednesday the 31st. And joining her will be Tamiko Thiel, who is the getting the Lifetime Achievement Award at SIGGRAPH this year for her work in computer graphics, AI, VR, XR, etc., and some others. The whole program over this coming week is just going to be more of what we've just seen today, really awe-inspiring, creative, and intelligent work that is creatively motivated. And also, this is being done by independent creators who understand that with that creativity, with that freedom to create and inspire, there's a tremendous amount of possibility for social responsibility. And we're seeing it right here with these few presenters just now and with those during the coming week. A tremendous amount of social application, social responsibility, and caring about humanity at a time when we really require greater caring and creative vision for our societies. So I want to thank everybody, and in 20 minutes we're going to have another session. So thank you all.
Thank you.